Well, coming up down Rookie Royal, got the chance to make our first European final here of this save after getting past Sevilla in the quarterfinals of the Conference League yesterday. Now, got a little bit of a final before the actual final as we take on Newcastle United in the semi over 2 legs. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 72 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Jahn Regensburg. I hope you're doing well and come up day. We've got the Conference League semi, which really is the final because that other side of the draw, not too much chop. We've got Newcastle United from the Premier League over 2 legs. If we get past them, then surely can come back tomorrow for a little bit of a party. If we don't, though, it might actually be the end of the season in this episode. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. But this comes off the back of a game against RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga yesterday, as well as the first leg of our quarter-final against Sevilla. So if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. In the end, felt like we could skip over that second leg, seeing as we picked up a 3-0 win away from home, and thankfully did back it up there with a 3-2-1 at home. I'm pretty sure, again, that game might have been at Ingolstadt, not in Regensburg. Indeed, that was the case, but thankfully came back there from a goal down. Actually took a 3-1 lead just before half-time. They grabbed a goal back there in the second half, but really never under too much threat off the back of that 3-0 win we did pick up there in the first leg. Was so confident we even got to play Lingvar in goal there, so you can kind of tell I wasn't too worried about that one. A little bit disappointed it was that close with their 2 shots on target, but Lingvar, not too much chop. Probably someone we'll look to let go of once we make our way to the transfer window, if we're still here by the time that we do get to that stage. But that's how we've made our way through here to the semi-finals of the Conference League. And around that, we've made our way quite deep into the Bundesliga season. In between those 2 leagues, we took on Union Berlin. There, not much chop, and thankfully, the 4-4-2 diamond did pay off here as we bet them 4-1 away from home. Then 2-1 against Heidenheim off the back of that second leg win over Sevilla. We have just dropped points though away at Schalke, slightly disappointing. But considering that Alex Jimenez here got a second yellow card only 40 minutes in, the fact that we actually held on here and picked up a point was not too bad at all. So to be fair, while that result does look a bit disappointing, it was pretty decent seeing as we played with 10 men for most of the match. You'll see it here. They were actually on top of us for most of the game, and that red card did not help. So thankfully, hold on there and pick up a point. Unfortunately, a late goal there, which was ruled out to Alanes. He was just offside by about a freckle, but it does mean that already, with only 3 games left in the Bundesliga season, we've guaranteed ourselves some Champions League football for next season. Leipzig and Bayer Leverkusen, they dropped points there on that same time that we took on Schalke. So we've got some Champions League footy here next season, no matter what happens in our last 3 games. Unfortunately, those drop points at Schalke, though, do mean that really it's a bit too much now to try and make up on Bayern. That gap has been closing, but 8 points in 3 games, probably a little bit too much to be asking for. So it looks like Bayern will be the champions here of the Bundesliga. Fingers crossed we can hold on there and seal second spot, because that would be a significant rise in our pay there off the back of where we finished last season down in 7th. We get a good extra 30 or so million for finishing second here in the Bundesliga. So fingers crossed that's something that we can do probably off camera around this Conference League semi, because really it's the only couple of big games we've got left this season, seeing as the final will be against a pretty rubbish team. We will come back for it if we make it that far, but of course Newcastle are a very good team. This was a job that came up a little while ago. Patrick Vieira has only taken over in the last little while. For some reason, he took a wee while to transition from being the previous French manager to actually joining Newcastle United. You can see it there. He's only been here for 28 days. So he's going to come in here and try and get himself a Conference League title next to his name, but not much work. But before then, Newcastle have been doing relatively decently, especially in this competition, just like us, the only unbeaten team. In the end, a 5-0 win over Sirius in that second league. And so far this season, they do sit 9th in the Premier League. So to be fair, they're not going that well domestically. They might actually need to pick up this Conference League if they want some European football next season. So to be fair, Newcastle might have a bit more to play for here over these 2 leagues. Obviously, they've got Premier League money. They'll be pretty stacked in terms of their squad quality, even compared to a team like Sevilla that we did take on second up in yesterday's episode. And thankfully, we come into this game with not too many injuries to players we'd actually use. Ethan Patera's out with sprained ankle ligaments, but he's not actually registered for the Conference League. Tygo Land, some sprained knee ligaments, but a few players in front of him in both central and attacking midfield these days as well. The issue does come, though, for this first leg, in that we've got some players on a heavy workload, and a couple of them are quite big ones in particular. Once we find him, Louis Hawkera is a little bit injury prone. So for this game, we're going to actually start Tilo Hasman there in central midfield. Apart from that, though, going with a pretty strong team. Newellers are still there at right wing because Lewis Walder is still coming back from injury. Didn't impress in that second leg where we took on Sevilla. I think he picked up 2 goals there. But Lazar should be a better player attribute-wise, and do feel like currently he is in some slightly better form, albeit it's a good problem to have. We've got 2 very good right wingers, and for this game, we are going to go with the 4-2-3-1 because apparently that's the formation that does suit this Newcastle team most once we organise this by the actual clear-cut chances. But to be fair, there's not a lot of difference between the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-3-3. Looks like the 4-2-3-1 might just be slightly better, so fingers crossed this might get the job done here in first up. It's going to be super tricky away from home. If we get some sort of parity out of this first leg, we'll hopefully be able to go back to Germany and pick up a win in the second leg. But definitely, you'd imagine this will be a bit tougher than that second leg will be. Newcastle's home advantage at St James Park might be a bit here a factor. With the Premier League money, Patrick Vieira probably the best manager we'll take on so far in the safe haven previously, being the French manager. As I said, not too sure why that was the time he transitioned between jobs, because pretty sure France went up to too much there mid-season during the actual European club thing, so not too sure there why he's taken over so long after that job did first become available around the same-ish time, of course, as Aston Villa, because Eddie Howe, who got the Aston Villa job over us, was also being sought after to return to Newcastle, and he chose Aston Villa, so that's the reason we did not go there. To be fair, not too sure how Aston Villa have ended up doing in the knockouts of the Europa League 1 competition up there. Newcastle, see they've got Callagher on their bench and goal, but someone else there who is starting. In terms of us, as we mentioned before, Hasman there in central midfield for a slightly injury-prone Hawkera, and Lazar at right wing as Walden still coming back from that injury that he had, but definitely can use him off the bench now if we do have some issues with Lazar. But to be fair, he's been in really good form recently. Here's the young Israeli. Will be interesting to see what we do there next season, depending on what happens in the transfer window and if we don't get pinched by a bigger club, because this kind of feels like a season that should firmly put us on the map here in terms of a big European manager. We're going relatively close to a Bundesliga title, with a team expected to be just outside the relegation zone. As early stages here on the attack. Lazar will try and fire that one bottom left corner, but a good save there from Carnishi. That's who's starting in goal for Newcastle. Does put that one out for a corner, which Lazar is going to take. Can he pick out Ruslan? No, he can't. Lopez plays that one back there to Fernandes. For some reason, Ruslan is outside the box, and that highlight comes to an end once he does a back pass. But early stages looking somewhat promising with that chance we did have, but unfortunately, Lazar couldn't take it. But I was saying, this season we're having currently going quite close to both a Bundesliga title and a European title, even though it's just a Conference League. And of course, right at the start of the season, we did get our Continental Pro license. This could see us up quite nicely for a big move, albeit now we might need to focus on this game because unfortunately a free kick, there is a bit of soft defence that we've done there, and pretty clearly they stayed onside. Apparently no VAR check, albeit the replay won't help at all. No idea what's going on there from that angle, as Gordon did take the free kick. That's also an awful angle to try and show us the lines, but apparently their Palacios did stay onside and put that one away. We go 1-0 down. A couple of players too have picked up yellow cards. Alex Jimenez right off the back of that red card in that Schalke game, so he's not in too good a form. And also Fabian Fernandes at left wing picks up a yellow, as does Hasman. So maybe Hawkera is actually going to come on anyway here in this game. And also Ruslan picks up a yellow card. So oh dear, might be forced here into quite a few subs at halftime just for these players who are on yellow cards. And also Dorn and Muller are going terribly on some 6.3, so a really poor first half from us here in this game. We'll bring on Pavicic at right centre back, Rawlins at right back. Let's bring on Hawkera despite those injury concerns, and Alanis for Fernandes. We could make one more sub between Dorn and Muller, but of course injury situations we've had recently in this save, we're making all 5 subs a bit too early. We won't do that because that would be very, very annoying if we went down further after running out of subs. So we'll leave one more sub up here for the second half, but there's a really poor first half despite the fact we had a good chance early. The only thing we saw from Newcastle, soft defensively, and we go 1-0 down. But stats-wise, actually not doing too badly in this game. So fingers crossed here, a couple of subs they might make a difference, keeping a big eye out here on Dawn and Rene Müller early in the second half. They both continue to kind of suck, but so far it's Müller who's going a little bit worse as Rawlins now picks up a yellow card. So our right backs at the moment are picking up a bunch of cards, and just past the hour mark, Newcastle are back on the attack. Fingers crossed here can actually win the ball off them and try and do something, but so far that isn't happening. João Gomez there gets played in behind far too easily and puts that one away. We're looking very shaky here against Premier League opposition for the first time in the save. Livramento there to Tonali. It goes across here to Alper, I believe that is, and somehow Gomez has got in behind there. Rawlins on that yellow card. The blooming Australian always let you down in big moments, because that's what Australians do, and they go 2-0 up. So unfortunately, it is a quite well timed run, to be fair, a little bit harsh there on Rawlins, because it's some great work there from João Gomez, but they make it 2-0, despite the fact that stats-wise, we have not been too bad. We'll make our final sub try and stir up this defence here, because Dawn on a 6.3, that's not really good enough. So Henning can come on there at left back, and hopefully we might get something going late here, just be able to pinch back one goal and go back home with a 2-1 deficit. That wouldn't be too bad, but anything worse here than 2-0, and we might be in trouble. And Sanusi here starts to make his way forward down the left-hand side for Newcastle with just under 20 minutes left. As I said, really don't want to concede here, otherwise we will be in all sorts of trouble. But some nice short passing here from the black and whites in front of the home fans, the Geordies. They are on the attack, and Sanusi will put that one away from a tight angle. Maybe should have done this sooner, but we'll switch here to a bit of a higher tempo 4-3-3, because the 4-2-3-1, it isn't working in terms of highlights. To be fair, stats-wise though, we haven't been playing too bad. That's the reason I was sticking with this formation, as well as what our analysts did say before this game. But that's a pretty soft goal again there to concede. Owusu Adodo really should be saving that. Of course, we actually bought him off Tottenham Hotspur. That might be why he doesn't like big matches, because he's a Tottenham player. Of course, in this save, don't think they've won a European trophy yet, because we're still back in FM24 days. But maybe a chance for us here off back of that switch to a 4-3-3. Nice ball there from Lazar to Rene Müller, who thumps that one against the post on a 6.1. So unfortunately, Rene Müller has just cost us there a potential way back into this game, and now a good chance for Newcastle down the other end. Thankfully, Isaac, that shot does get saved. He was offside as well, but might have to go full out attack here pretty shortly. 3-0, not too sure if we can turn this around. Even back in Germany, let's go full out attack here. Chuck Horkira onto attack as well as Lucini Alanis as well, and Rawlins. Those players who are on support can go into an attack, and even higher tempo will be more expressive and get our goalkeeper to distribute quickly. But unfortunately, haven't really fronted here in this first big game that we have had this season, which did look a little bit tricky. Sevilla didn't go that well in the league phase of the Conference League. They got past Atlanta, but we did too pretty comfortably. That, though, is easily one of our worst performances of the season. We pick up a bunch of yellow cards, put out a bunch of poor ratings, and we're going to be 3-0 down going back to Germany for that second leg. So unfortunately, might already be in a situation where there's not too much left to play for here the rest of the season at Jahn Regensburg. We'll come back and try and turn this round. Hopefully can bounce back as well in the Bundesliga in between now and then, but that is a really poor result. A 3-0 loss there at Newcastle to set up what could have been a final that would have been really winnable. Now going to have to really focus on the second leg, as Kukuriki Stunkum have won 5-3 there away at AIK, but I don't think for now we need to worry about that, because we're in all sorts of trouble 3-0 down after the first leg. And before we get stuck into the second leg, here are the highlights from our league game, which was at home against Cologne. Did rotate for this one a little bit, just the players who needed it. Thankfully got off to a good start there. Fernandez just stayed on side and buried it to make it 1-0, but only a few minutes later, Lopez there, a little bit loose on the ball. They somehow keep it there through Bahoya and roll. We'll put that one past Owusu Adodo and make it 1-1. Thankfully, just before halftime though, we did get back in front. Rawlins, who was on a pretty poor rating up until here, finds Toff there, who can make it 2-1. But late on, it is Cologne here on the counter-attack with 10 minutes left. They knock it about here on the edge of the box, and Bissek somehow finds himself there in a ton of space, can put that one away. We drop points again in the Bundesliga, and seeing as we were already 8 points behind Bayern, that now means that Bayern are the Bundesliga champions. They did pick up, if we go back here and find them, a 1-0 loss away at Bayer Leverkusen. So actually, if we picked up points there, we could have kept ourselves in a little bit of a title race. But unfortunately, that late goal to Bissek does mean that we are no longer a chance at the title. To be fair, it was a bit of a long stretch anyway, but they have been bottling things a little bit late, unfortunately. So have we over the course of our last couple of games. So really, there's nothing to play for now in our last 2 games in that Bundesliga season, apart from the fact it would be quite nice to stay in second with that slightly bigger payday that we will get. It does mean we've got our transfer budget for next season just over 26 million. The wage budget does rise a little bit. If we check it out, it does go up to 580k, give or take. So if we're going to budgets here for the season, which is probably quite fair considering that we're going to need a massive turnaround job here when we take on Newcastle in this second league. All of a sudden, our form not looking so good here at Jahn Regensburg, despite the fact that before that first game of today's episode, we've been going really well. Only a couple of losses there in the second part of the season. That second league against RZ and, of course, back against Bayern because they're Bayern Munich. But all of a sudden, not in too good a form. So we're really going to need a big turnaround here in the second leg. We are sticking with the 4-2-3-1. Analyst does still say it's going to be a bit better than the 4-3-3. We'll see how it goes early. If we need to change things, we can probably do it a little bit earlier at halftime if this 4-2-3-1 is not working. But for this game, it's our regular best 11. But Rollins comes in over Jimenez. His form of late has been far too average. And also, you would have noticed that Lewis Walden is there at right wing over Lazar. A little bit fair there in that first game that we did play. And also, when we played that Bundesliga one. So Lewis Walden back to full fitness. Fingers crossed that he can do a good job here in the second leg like he did back when we took on Sevilla. And also, Paul Kira has got back to full fitness, so can start this game as well. So it's a little bit of a stronger team that we put out, arguably, apart from Rawlins at right back. But recent form, the Australian, has been going just a little bit better, but definitely concerned about him. He's been a little bit rocks and diamonds so far for us here at Jahn Regensburg. But let's see if we can somehow find a way here to turn around this 3-0 deficit. The stats from that first game weren't that bad, but defensively, just super soft when they did get on the attack. So unfortunately, that feels like it's going to prove costly in the semi-final. Going to need a big turnaround here in Ingolstadt, not even our home stadium. But let's see what we can do against the men in the Saudi green. That's probably FIFA's favourite uniform if they could get them to a Club World Cup. To be fair though, I've been watching the Club World Cup suits quite nicely. The timings here in New Zealand, it's been a pretty good watch, honestly. I don't mind it. Maybe because I quite enjoy watching the South American football, and some Euro snobs absolutely hate the competition. I don't mind it, but it's been some good games so far, especially the likes, as I saw earlier today, of Inter Monterrey, Benfica versus Boca Juniors, and a few others, Palmeiras and Porto. Might be a few others coming up over the next few days as I record this. As I said a little bit ago, trying to get it here on recordings before a trip away. So if you're wondering, that happened last week, Shaun. That's the reason that I'm talking about it now. But thankfully, on the attack early, and we get one past there, the Saudi green of Newcastle. Some lovely short passing, and Fernandez makes it 1-0. It's somehow already a half hour in. I was talking far too much there about the first week of the Club World Cup. We'll just ignore Auckland City because that was pretty poor, but obviously semi-pro team. Bayern Munich can't really understand all the talk about that. What did you expect? Definitely a team from Oceania at the Club World Cup, as we saw back in our New Zealand Builder Nation. We won it with Kashmir Tech. That was pretty fun, but that's got us back into this tie a little bit. If we can score one more before halftime, that would be quite nice. But now, unfortunately, we do start to pick up a couple of yellow cards, one of them to Fabrizio Lucchini on a 6.4. So I think that's a sub that we'll make here at halftime as well, as Henning coming on for Dawn. To be fair, that's probably something that we should start considering making a bit more permanent, because Dawn can be decent, but has been a little bit fair over the last couple of games that we have been playing. So not too good there from away Dawn in today's episode. Lucchini has been really good this season, but not too good today. So Dama Kamara, who's done a really good job in the Conference League at times this season, will get a chance here in the second half, and fingers crossed can grab an early goal. If we don't, might need to consider changing things, because unfortunately stats-wise here Newcastle are actually doing a pretty good job. A little bit unlucky that they're 1-0 down, but thankfully we've got a little bit here potentially of a way back into this tie. But Newcastle here are on the attack early in the second half. Rooney starts to make his way there just on the edge of the box. A decent chance there for João Felix. Thankfully misses the target. A big chance there for them to get back to a 3-goal lead, but they do blow it, and it is still 3-1 here to Newcastle on aggregate. Ruslan picks up a yellow card, and also Rawlins a 6.4. That's not too hot, so a couple of changes will make here. Pavicic at right centre back and Jimenez at right back. Apart from that, though, there's not too many other players out there on a poor rank. Sebastian Lopez a 6.5, arguably could take him off there for La Rosa, but might need to save that final sub up for another attacker if we need to try something a bit funky here late on, if we're still 3-1 down. And if we don't do something from this highlight, maybe might be time to switch here to a 4-3-3 as Isaac there does start to hit Newcastle on the counter-attack. Back out there to Rooney down the right-hand side. What will he do? Holds up and plays it back there to Livramento. Thankfully, Kamara there, a good interception, but that pass a little bit dodgy, and Fernandes, a poor first touch. It does mean Newcastle get back on the ball again. A chance for us there to do something as we win the ball, but that pass there over the top looking for Walden is not on the money. But we find Kamara, who picks out Muller. A great chance, and Karnishi has somehow saved that. That looked like a certain goal on the counter-attack, but unfortunately Newcastle's goalkeeper comes up big, and we can't quite find Ruslan there, or I should say Pavicic now at the near post. So really near the goal, it felt like there from that highlight. We are still 1-0 up on the day, 3-1 down though on aggregate. We're going to make our final sub because Walden drops down to a red heart. And while we're here, we might go a little bit more positive here with this 4-2-3-1 and see if that works. And also a little bit higher tempo, try and grab one more goal because we actually scored here in this game. So we'll stick with this formation for a little bit longer. But once we make our way over the last 15 minutes, we probably need to switch to the 4-3-3. And seeing as that's what's about to happen here, as Isaac picks up an injury, hopefully that might impact them late on here in this game. Goal scoring wise, hopefully now not much chance here of Newcastle grabbing one back. Let's go here for a bit more of an attacking formation, but a 4-3-3. We'll see if that might pay off here late on. It kind of helped, it felt like, in that previous game where we did get battered 3-0. So I'm kind of hopeful here that a switch to a 4-3-3, it might work here late on, and also going with an attacking mindset. But unfortunately, we're not really doing a lot here in this game. If Muller scored that goal, wonderful save from the Newcastle goalkeeper, that would have helped. Have just noticed too, we probably should put Kamara in the right position. Oh dear, why does FM do that? Let's switch him here with Lopez. That will probably help. But late on here, let's just try and go full out attack, super high tempo, and be more expressive, and also go a little bit wider with our attack as well. But unfortunately, that kind of sums things up here for this tie, just not quite getting things right here when it does count in Newcastle. As we try and put those changes through, they do here have a free kick. Now Gordon does get brought down, but that looked pretty safely outside the box there from Lopez. So pretty hopeful this won't amount to too much. It will stay 3-1, and there won't be a silly penalty given away here to make sure Newcastle can put us to bed. And thankfully, that is the case, but they do still get the free kick here. Gordon will put this one far post, and Sven Botman will head that one home, and that will cook us, unfortunately, 4-1. No chance now. Let's go back to the 4-2-3-1 and actually switch it to a 4-1-4-1. Let's just see if somehow we can find a way back into this game, but really, we're 3 goals down with 2 minutes plus injury time left in this game. We're just changing things for the sake of it to see what might work, because Newcastle, Premier League team, Premier League money, too much for us here with little old Jahn Regensburg in the Bundesliga. So unfortunately, can't quite make a European final in our first cricket one here with Jahn Regensburg in the save. And really, that should seal Newcastle as the Conference League champions, as it looks like they'll take on a pretty rubbish team in the final in Kukariki Stunkum or AIK. But that was pretty disappointing in today's episode. Stats-wise actually got going well late there to try and even up that XG, but unfortunately, it was the first leg there that did all the damage. We lose 3-0, and from there, it was always going to be a little bit hard. We'll try and be nice to our guys here, because of course Newcastle expected to be a much better team than we were in the Conference League this season, but unfortunately, kind of blown a big chance there, get our first European trophy of this save, because Newcastle now should pick it up pretty comfortably as they'll take on Kukariki Stankum, who almost bottled things there in the second leg, but get through on a penalty shootout. But to be fair, they went closer than we did. A 4-1 loss there to Newcastle. So I think off the back of that, we might just skip forward. I'll play the last 2 Bundesliga games of the season off camera, and we get stuck in to the end of season review. And going forward a couple of weeks there from that loss to Newcastle over 2 legs in that Conference League semi. And here's our end of season review, seeing as those last 2 Bundesliga games have pretty much nothing riding on them, seeing as we re-qualified for the Champions League and could not pick up the Bundesliga title. First up, the signings. Highest rating does go to Lucchini. You'd think he'd pick that up as the signing of the season with 14 goals and 10 assists. And also, Owusu-Odolu did not do too badly, but Henning, a lower cost and 16 assists. He does pick up our signing of the season there for a fee of 6 million, despite the fact the board rated that as a Detour. If we signed him earlier, could have definitely been in the race for that one with that fee. Honestly, a brilliant player from what we've seen of him so far here at Jahn Regensburg. And below that, a few other players we did pick up for our first team going into our second season here in the Bundesliga. And of course, our first in Europe. Fernandez did a pretty good job there at left winger, coming in and usurping Johan de Burquia. Cuervo, a decent job there as a first choice centre back. Harsman did quite well before we replaced them with Hawkera. Vargas and Alanis, some decent squad players, and Menza, who we did pick up just to fill a little bit there of a homegrown quota in the Conference League. The transfers out, of course, Hawkera, we sold there for a club record 13 million back in January, and going down a bit further, some other handy players we have had previously, but felt like their level might have been found out last season, might be better off down in the second tier of a European competition. A few players who are out on loan, we'll see if we're still here to use them next season. Of course, Lingbar did come back halfway through off the back of that sale of Omnium Lukic. That's what happened there in terms of transfers this season. Now, results-wise, thankfully, we did do enough there to hold on and pick up second spot. Actually played a 4-4-2 diamond our last 2 games of the season, seeing as that's what served the opposition, and picked up a couple of 2-0 wins over Werder Bremen and Stuttgart. So we finish on 74 points, only 4 points off Bayern Munich, which is not too bad at all. They definitely started to falter late on there in the season, but in the end, it's a pretty clear second placing for us there, and we're going to go straight through to the league phase of the Champions League. You'll see it there, only 2 losses in the Bundesliga this season, and they were both to the champions in Bayern Munich. The other unfortunate thing, a lot of draws there early in the season before we turned off, being more disciplined on our tactics, and also moved to a higher defensive line. Definitely felt like that was a big difference maker in improving that pretty average form that we did have there up until the early stages of November. But from there, we were very, very good, especially in the Bundesliga, the Conference League. Super in this up until we took on Newcastle. The only losses we did suffer, as well, of course, as that second leg to RZ Alkmaar. But really, the 3-0 win in that first leg kind of meant that wasn't too big a deal. But Newcastle, they thumped us there in that first leg of that semi. As you did just see, still waiting for that Conference League final to take place. And DFB Pokal, actually our biggest disappointment this season. Unfortunately, the Wolfsburg game did fall a bit of a weird time for us and amongst quite a busy schedule, and we lost those guys 2-0 in the end. It was Eintracht Frankfurt who beat Bayer Leverkusen in the final, and a penalty shootout. No DFB Pokal there for Bayern Munich. Going forward to the moments to remember, our biggest win was 7-0 over Dudelanger in the Conference League. The match to remember, a 5-2 win over Wolfsburg back in September. Not too sure if that's one that we showed you guys, but goal this season, definitely show you guys this one. The free kick on debut by Hawkera and our 1-goal win over Eintracht Frankfurt. An early sign of things to come here from our little Chilean maestro. Wonderful free kick there into the top left corner. A massive way to make an impact on his debut. And as I suggested, that did pick up our goal of the season. Going forward to the finances, most of this was good. Somehow broadcast revenue has gone down despite the fact we had the Conference League this season, and also match day commercial and retail has gone down as well, maybe because technically not at home for those Conference League games and got knocked out earlier in the DFB Pokal maybe, but apart from that, everything else does go up, especially our competition prize money. Good amount of money there from all those wins in the Conference League, and finishing second in the Bundesliga. Our top shirt sellers, Hawkera, actually tops it, which is a pretty good effort, seeing as we only signed him in January. Also, Walden, Owusu-Odolu, Lucchini, and Fernandez. So to be fair, quite a few of our new signings there do pop up in terms of the top shirt sellers. Going forward to our best 11 from this past season, going here with our 4-2-3-1. The goalkeeper, that makes sense. Our wingback's a bit different to the ones we regularly start. It's actually Henning at left back and Rollins at right back, and also Pavicic alongside Ruslan. Both of those guys were quite influential from set pieces, usually switching with the other though. So a little bit harsh on Cuervo that he's not in there. In defensive midfield, we've got Lopez and Lucchini, and Kamara both make the team. So a little bit interesting there that none of our central midfielders do sneak in there, but obviously Harsman did get replaced by Hawkera halfway through the season, so I suppose that makes sense. Lazar at right wing, not super surprising with that injury that Walden did suffer. Lazar has been pretty good this season. Fernandez at left wing, and the Bente Toff actually gets in there over Rene Muller up front. So a couple there of interesting decisions that the game's made for our overall best 11 this season going forward to the club awards. The fans player of the season and young player of the season does go to Lucchini. So a little bit surprising he didn't actually pick up there that signing of the season, but that was Henning, and we saw some of that other stuff earlier. Top goal scorer was still Rene Muller with 17. Not too sure how Toff bet him there to that spot in our best 11. The most assists though did go to Henning with 16. Lucchini, the most man of the matches and the highest average rating. No competition awards just yet. We'll see maybe if they come through once the promotion relegation games do get completed. The most goals by a player in a match here, Adama Kamara 4. That was in the Conference League game. Most clean sheets now, Owusu Adulo. That's with 18. Worst discipline, still Alex Jimenez. Loves a couple of cards and a couple of reds this season at right back. Our youngest player, Albassa, in one of our Conference League games. Someone we have coming through a previous youth intake. Highest transfer fee paid was for Owusu Adulo, but to be fair, bit of an upgrade on Lukic, I think it's fair to say, based on how he did this season. And we did also get our highest fee in for Taberquia of 11 million. That should rise to 13.5 once he plays, I think. One more game for Sunderland. We'll have to wait for that, hopefully, at some stage during the course of the transfer window. And going forward here, a brilliant start, to be fair. Not too sure I agree with that, because a little while the other patch there, we were picking up a bunch of draws, but in the end, not that many losses. That was a big difference maker and why we finished second. And going back here to about where things did finish last season, and I think this will be it. Rene Muller, the top goal scorer in the Bundesliga last season. Lewis Walden, a new contract, spent lots of money in the transfer window and also spent a bit as well. We go forward from this, and that's all that's been added to the manager timeline this season. A late goal to beat Heidenheim back in December, 300 games in charge with a 2-0 win over Schalke. A record sale for Taberquia and a general record in terms of the club. And also a couple of players from previous youth intakes there who got some game time in the Conference League. So to be fair, nothing too notable added there apart from the fact that we've now had 300 games in charge at Jahn Regensburg. Speaking of the club, here's the overall best 11. 4 things here now with Jahn. Now, you'll see quite a few players we've had a hand with, but honestly, it's still got a few players from before we got here as well. So not too sure how useful these sort of things are in the journeyman saves. We're still waiting for results from the promotion relegation game and also the Conference League final as well. So we'll just make our way forward and get through that. And going forward a few days off the back of our end of season review, and here's the result here from the promotion relegation game in the Bundesliga. Union Berlin, they will stay up, just doing enough there to pick up a 4-2 winner over Holstein Kiel after extra time. So it does mean that the team's going down, Bochum and Heidenheim, the team's going up just 2 of them. That will be if we check things out here. Don't care about this by Bundesliga and their playoff of the 3rd tier. It is Hamburg as champions. To be fair though, that's really even only with 59 points. And Darmstadt, so to be fair, not too sure if those 2 teams will last too long in the Bundesliga next season. But only 2 teams are coming up for our next season if we're still here with Jahn Regensburg. And also off the back of that, a couple of awards they have come in. You'll see their record high, obviously, with 74 points and also only 2 losses, which is a pretty darn good season in terms of the league. As I said, just done there by Bayern Munich on a couple of occasions. Unfortunately, no one really in the hunt there for the Players Player of the Year. Rene Muller was second for top goal scorer, but Guay from Gladbach did beat him by 4 goals. But to be fair, did outdo Evan Ferguson, who cost Bayern Munich a lot more. So Rene Muller still doing a decent job for us here at Jahn Regensburg. The best rookie, no one in the hunt there, which is a bit surprising. But we pick up our first award here in Germany as the Players Manager of the Year. And also, we've got one player in the Team of the Year, our captain, good old Ruslan. So to be fair, a bit more popping up than we had here last season from our work during the Bundesliga season. And to round things off, very unsurprisingly, we've got the result here from the Conference League final. Newcastle, they won it 5-2 over Kukuriki-Stanken, which definitely is not a surprise, really. As I said, that semi-final was a little bit of a shadow final. You'll see there, Taberquia did quite well in terms of the average rating, and Joshua Rawlins is up there, but the yellow cards, so actually not too sure if our players did quite as well as expected there in terms of some of those player stat awards. But going back here to our inbox, somehow not the biggest overachievers, because we were actually supposed to be one of the favourites there for that Conference League. Going up a little bit further, Alexander Isaac picked up player of the season Newcastle, just dominating that with the top 3 players. The Golden Boot, no one in that either. Young player of the season went to Garda from RZ, but we do have a player in the team of the season. It's Levente Toff, which honestly is a little bit surprising, but thankfully he gets in there because otherwise it's a Newcastle whitewash, which does look a little bit yuck, but I think that will do it for today's episode, wrapping up our second season here in the Bundesliga with Jahn Regensburg and our 4th one here in the save. If you enjoyed this season, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on, as we'll come back tomorrow and see if we get the chance to spend that transfer budget that we do have about 40k spare before some contract renewals. They do go through. Lewis Walden, we've been able to keep him at the club, I think, and we should be getting rid of a £24 million release clause, which is very useful with him being one of our homegrown club players. So to be fair, that wage budget, it might disappear, might just sell some players if we want to boost that up, and also that transfer budget, which is quite decent, but I was expecting a little bit more considering the 80 odd million we did get from our Bundesliga campaign, but 26 million that we will have to spend. That's of course though if a big club does not come after us. So far, the job centre, I don't think we can claim any of these as big clubs. If we make our way down, it's a little bit quiet so far. A couple of jobs there in League on Stade Rennais maybe, but honestly, we're in the Champions League next season. We'll take a pretty good job now for us to turn our head here away from Jahn Regensburg. That's really the only big job on that job centre so far, but we'll see if managers retire and some weird stuff does go on around that. So I think for now, it's looking likely we'll still be here at Jahn Regensburg, but of course if something pops up, we'll recap that in tomorrow's episode as well as the transfers that we do make. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.